All right, welcome everybody watching and welcome to the first Democratic primary debate. Tonight it is between me and Oran. We'll be debating for the nomination of the Democratic Party for Senate District 3. First are the rules. There will be 6 10-minute segments including economic prosperity, equality in America, climate change, education plan, ISIS in North Korea, and leadership in America. Each candidate gets a 2-minute opening statement, which we'll do in just a second. Each candidate gets 2.5 minutes to answer a question, and each candidate gets 1 minute to follow up a rebuttal. Both candidates are allowed to time themselves and their opponent, but I will also be timing it officially on my computer. So, without further ado, Oren, you can start with your opening statement.
Uh, Hello, I'm Oran Mulcahy, and I'm seeking a nomination for the Democratic Party, obviously for District 3 of the Senate. Uh,
Okay, is that all?
yep.
Okay, I'll start by saying I'm Kelvin Hawthorne. I live in the state of Illinois. I've been a Democrat since forever because my dad's side of the family is entirely Democratic, and then my mom is a Democrat. And then the only real part of my family that is Republican is my grandma and grandpa and my grandparents. Um, so I've been interested in politics ever since 2015 when Hillary announced her candidacy for president. I supported her all the way, and I was staying interested in politics since then. So that's why I'm here today, and hopefully we can have a good debate. So let's dive into the first question. The first question is on the topic of economic prosperity. Here we go. The basic idea of a free market is allowing corporations and small businesses to freely trade and sell products at their own pleasure. Do you plan to cut these freedoms?
Um,
Oren, you're the first.
no, I don't plan to cut these freedoms. I, in fact, plan to cut the national sales tax by around 25%. So more people buy the product, and the demand goes up, and companies can prosper and stronger goods.
Okay. For me, uh, we live in a capitalist nation. A capitalist nation that's been around now for 241 years this year. And the basic idea of capitalism is having the opportunity to trade freely, to run your corporation freely, and I think that that should not be infringed by government or by any other power that's outside. Now, regulation is required. We are going to have to input some sort of regulation um, to strengthen the small business part of the United States economic system and to weaken the corporations in America. Because as we know, corporations are part of that top one half of 1% of people who controls all the wealth in America. And we are going to have to um, figure out some regulation to, you know, bring down the power of the corporations as opposed to, cutting their entire freedom of a free market. So it's definitely something we are going to have to look at, and we're going to have to put it on the table, and it's something we're going to have to thoroughly discuss in the future. So for the next, I think we actually have like 6 or 7 minutes left in the rest of this segment, so it can be open discussion from here. First, I want to follow up on what you said, Oren, and what you believe. I thoroughly looked at your economic plan, and I just had question like you said that you wouldn't take away these freedoms. Is there any way that you would like devalue a corporation to the point where they no longer have so much power over the small business sector in American
Uh,
economy?
since these large corporations tend to own stocks, I would like to introduce a Wall Street transaction tax. Whenever you withdraw a stock, you have tax to limit the power of these companies. And also, this would allow smaller companies to be able to buy their own stock and be able to freely use the stock market like they're supposed to. So large corporations obviously don't control it.
I'm actually gonna stop you for just a second. We can't hear you very well. I don't think the people can hear you on the live chat either. So can you try to move your device closer to you to see if that helps at least a little? I'm not sure. It's just kind of choppy audio, so I wasn't sure.
Um,
Yeah, I still can't hear you very well.
um, okay, um, is better?
Yeah, that's a little better. I think maybe just speak a little slower so we can get some more out of what you're saying.
Okay. Um,
Okay, so I think I kind of got what you said. Is there anything you wanted to add on to that?
no.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say that to sum up kind of my economic plan in general, the United States, more than half of the United States jobs is controlled by small business, and then you have the other half of it that is controlled by corporation. In in realistically, 90% of people who are employed in America are most likely employed by a small business rather than a corporation. Now you look at places like McDonald's or Wendy's or Walmart, and those are all corporations where people work nationwide. And if you look at a small business, my grandparents own a small business here in my city, and you know it seems that equality economically for small business owners is starting to kind of slip away. So I think that's something that we're going to have to focus on a lot. And I think the main way to focus on that is going to be um, pulling the corporations back from being so strong. And how are we going to do that? We're going to have to raise taxes on corporations. Corporations do not pay enough taxes, and they definitely could pay more taxes. Small businesses pay nearly all of the taxes. In fact, my grandparents pay a large income tax. They pay property tax. They pay, utilities, which are also basically taxes. Um, so I think those are all things that we're going to have to start charging more on corporations and less on small business owners.
Yeah, I also think we should build more organized communities. I live beside an organized community, and these communities are really good because you basically work and live in your business, so you don't have, so you don't like these are regulated by the city, so the regulations are already covered, and there's more space. The government is personally helping the small businesses by giving them more space to rent and use.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the best way that the government is going to, you know, make make economic inequality something that is actually an issue in this country is to start passing legislation that works towards um, making small businesses like they actually are controlling 90% of the economic system in the United States, and corporations who only control 2% or so of the United States economic system, which is absolutely crazy because we have so many of these corporations like Walmart, but it doesn't seem like there's only 2% of them. But what we're definitely going to have to do is we're going to have to start passing legislation that makes small businesses the prime economic uh, opportunity opportunity in America. So uh, that would mean that plays into the next question. Actually, small businesses control over half of the nation's jobs. Do you support growing them and expanding them nationwide? Why or why not? And if not, what's your plan instead? And what I have to say about that is, of course, I think small businesses have opportunities like that too. If we are able to create more small businesses and then to divide those small businesses up, and spread them across the United States. This not only employs people locally, but this is going to, with corporations, employ people statewide, nationwide, and not only that, but this is going to bring more money to the pockets of local government, state government, national government. So not only that, but if we do this, we can have enough money to fix our infrastructure, enough money to fix our bridges, roads, all that infrastructure. We have enough money to replace jobs. We have enough money to do all that. So I think that's definitely something that we're going to have to look at in the future.
I couldn't have said it any better.
Yeah. The next question is, what is your plan for companies leaving this nation?
I plan to introduce a overseas corporate tax because if a company is based in the United States that operates overseas, they will have to pay a tax every time they try to transition their goods from the U.S. to another country like China.
I agree. So how are you going to get them to pay an overseas tax? I mean, you can't just have this. You can't just have Maytag leave the country and go to Mexico and then um, expect them to pay a tax from Mexico. That not only interferes with their economic system, where this is actually getting into legal matters, the United States government, but this plays into how much money the Mexican government is getting. So this is definitely interfering. How are you going to work out that?
Um, the um, no comment.
Okay, well, I'll just move on to my answer. So what I have to say is that corporations leaving this country are absolutely tragic for families. I said I live in Galesburg, Illinois. That is Western Illinois. You could find this all over the internet. In 2002, Maytag plant left Galesburg, Illinois, and it left the city in absolute economic ruins. And when I say that, I mean the value of the government, or the government devalued. Families were in financial crises. There was a mass exodus of people. Um, and we see this not only here, but we see this in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, and this is a real issue. And to put it exactly, 4.7 companies, large companies, I'm talking large companies, leave our nation per year. And what this does is this unemploys not only 1 million people, but this unemploys more than 5 million people in the United States. And most of this, unfortunately, comes from the Rust Belt region. And the only way I think we can fix this is if we um, charge exit tax and tariff on companies leaving this nation. I actually have a set in stone plan for this. Like I said, 4.7 companies leave this nation per year. If we charge an exit tax and taking 50% of the net worth of a company, we can make up to $2,980,000 per year. And if we, with a tariff, we can earn $14 million per year. So if we put that together, we can make about $17 million, over $17 million per year, just based off of charging an exit tax and a tariff on companies leaving this nation. And a total of 10 years, get this, 10 years, we could make up to $89 million on companies leaving this nation. Not only is that enough to create jobs, but that's enough to invest in the biggest job creation since World War II. That's enough to create a large clean energy source in America. And that's enough to lower taxes on the middle class and still have enough money to pay for infrastructure, once again, job creation, clean energy, and all this stuff. So I definitely think this exit tax and tariff plan is something that would work in America. Um, and yeah, I mean,
I totally agree with you there. We should try to work quite hard personally as fast as you can because said whenever a company leaves, if it's very hard, that devastates the economy. People leave and no other company tries to return because space is what destroys. Everything goes rusty. No one takes care of anything.
I agree, and I think this is definitely something that we could tackle, especially if we work together, especially if we worked with the sake of the American people to get this done. I think we can definitely get this done if we worked hard on it.
Yep.
So it's time to move into the next segment, which is equality in America. The first question is police brutality a serious issue right now? If so, how do we fix it? You can respond first.
Um, issue. People get minorities don't. They get shot a lot because officers think everyone has a gun. So we need to number one put in place gun regulations, proper ones that like a universal background check. So private dealerships have to put background checks on these people. And number two, we need to make sure our police have much less lethal weapons and more non-fatal weapons.
I agree there, but I think it goes much further than just gun restrictions in America, and that's also an argument for a significant other challenge in America too. I think what we have to do not only starts with gun regulation, like you said, but it starts with understanding each other morally. In America, unless you have walked in somebody else's shoes, you don't know what they're thinking. Therefore, we have to make sure that communities like black communities and police communities understand each other. Why are the police scared of the black people? Why are the black people scared of the police? If we start to understand that, we can start to make a make more of a unified criminal justice system where if a cop is approaching a black person, the cop can know how to approach without threatening a black person and unfortunately either getting fatally wounded, or a black person can know how to approach a police officer without getting fatally wounded. It goes on both sides. They both can work together to understand each other, understand why they're threatened, and we can ultimately fix it. Next, like you said, is going to be gun restrictions. We need gun restrictions in America. Number one is taking assault rifles, automatic and semi automatic weapons off of American streets. That is going to be a number one priority. What does this mean? It means we're going to have to fight the NRA fiercely to get this done. For years, politicians have been fighting the NRA. Bernie Sanders has a D from the NRA. Hillary Clinton has an F from the NRA. Barack Obama has, I think, a D from the NRA. This means that our politicians have been furiously fighting the NRA, but we have to take legislative action against the NRA. The NRA, if we continue to have the amount of gun fatally shoot, fatal shootings in America, the NRA is going to have to take responsibility for this eventually, for defending the right for the people who actually use these weapons. Like we saw today, actually, in Spokane, whatever, uh, a school shooting. And there's several people injured. One student has been reported dead. This is tragedy in itself. And the NRA is standing there and defending it. So we have to make sure that the NRA does not have the right to defend cold blooded killings in America. And that all plays into, right there into the criminal justice system.
Um, I agree with you. Like the Spokane school shooting, that was horrible. If you look back at my post earlier, I supported universal background checks, and I also supported an assault rifle ban in Australia. 1987, it was a mass shooting at a farm with a standoff in the street. After that, a very conservative government, to remind you, a conservative government, they implemented an assault rifle ban, universal background checks, and there hasn't been a single shooting I have seen on the news happen in Australia.
Exactly. That's what we need to be looking at in America. Universal background checks, assault weapon bans. The Republicans need to know, the Republicans especially need to know that we are not here to take your guns away. But you do not need a AK-47 to protect yourself in a Walmart. That's ridiculous. And to think that you do need that to protect yourself in a Walmart is even more over the top. We are not here to take your guns away. We are here to protect Americans on the street.
I agree with you. Earlier, in August, there was a Walmart that got destroyed by the internet because they held a gun. They had a gun rack this school year. And you know, these companies can't sell these guns at least this openly, but extend the waiting period to maybe like 2 months.
Yeah, it's evident that police brutality, once again, pulling it back to that issue a little bit, is obviously happening in America. We've seen that over the last 2 years now, 3 years now, and so we're definitely going to have to fix that. But the next question that I have here is, for equality in America, is were the events in Charlottesville evident of civil war?
In some sense, yes. This is a proof that the internet, they're no longer just tools. They can assemble and they can assemble hate and they can use that against people. One person was killed. This is obvious. They are not willing on having a diplomatic conversation. So these people need to be limited on their ability to murder people.
I agree, and like you said, there's a death toll now. I did a video on YouTube, civil war base or versus protest in America. We are have the right to assemble, and I'm going to tell you one thing right now: assembling with weapons, that is a militia. Using those weapons against an opposite group, that is war. So we are literally in that incident defining war. And even though it's one incident, it doesn't mean that it doesn't prevent other incidents. One side is fighting for one cause, the other side is fighting for the other cause. They both have weapons that they can harm the other in some way or another, and one side happened to use those weapons lethally, and there's a death toll. This is a modern civil war in America, and this plays into equality in America. Both sides, black and white, are definitely have their arguments, but I think that once again, this pulls into the police brutality question again. The sides need to understand each other. Why does the white hate the black? Why does the black hate the white? We can't just be sitting here and watching this go along, because it's not just going to dissolve itself. It isn't just going to dissolve itself. It's going to take, either unfortunately federal troops or something to stop this. And if this continues, uh, it's not going to be a good thing. They say uh, that Trump makes us the laughing stock of America, but if you look at what his supporters are doing, or some, I should say, some of his supporters are doing, it makes us even more a laughing stock of America. We are supposed to be a free nation. We're supposed to be the most free nation on earth, and this is how we react to having that right. So if a somewhere like North Korea or China sees how we are treating our right to freedom, what's not to say they don't say, hey, we don't want to even have a chance at giving our people freedom, if that's how it's going to do, if that's how it's going to be, if we do give them freedom. So not only does this play into changing the world to be more democratic like us, because it definitely alienates nations from doing that, but it also affects us here at home too.
This also ties into the NRA lobbying. The Republicans seem to a little bit cozy up to this. President Trump, he refused to call out one side, and he had to be forced off to the stage to be able to call him out with a teleprompter. And he still eventually the next day called back that statement and said both sides committed the act. And it's sort of true. But when an act like this happens, you have to confront them face to face directly and make sure they don't do this again.
That's basically it summed up, to be honest with you. Um, Moving on to the next question is racial divide a real issue? And if so, how do we tackle it?
It is a serious issue. Back in January, everyone went ballistic. The right wing part of the internet, they said, "How dare they take hostage this Trump supporter because this person high-profile uh, wrestling site back in Charlottesville. Someone was killed by a car, and everyone just kept throwing it around like this could have been like a liberal that did this, or the opposite way around. We can tackle this. Um, we should probably invest in the prison system. There's a lot of racism. Invest in programs that are racial sensitivity training.
Wait, whoa. I have to stop you right there. Did you just say that we need to invest in prison systems?
No, I said we need to invest in racial sensitivity training.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. I
I
wasn't
don't.
sure.
Prisons are too crowded. You can't keep doing that.
Hmm. So, yeah, I agree with you. We need to look at this issue as a real threat. In America, racial divide has been a threat for as long as we have been here. Um, so, therefore, we have to treat it as a real threat to America. Um, Once again, Charlottesville, we saw this racial divide issue. The liberals who kidnapped the Trump supporters, that is racial divide. Um, it's all racial divide. All this last presidential election has really just been is a bunch of racial divide, and it has to stop. It doesn't need to stop tomorrow. It doesn't need to stop next month or next year or in 2020. It needs to stop right now. And it's going to take smart legislative leadership to stop them from having this divide in America. And I think we can do that. How are we going to do that? Well, once again, the sides need to understand each other. That's going to be a main issue. Do I think that there's definitely a way that we should tackle this? Yes, I think a smart idea to do, and this is just kind of an experimental plan, is to invest in, uh, you know, it's sort of like a class where white supremacists can go and black people can go, and you can kind of just go back and forth in saying whether you why you think this and why this side says that's not true and why this side thinks this and why this other side says no, that's not true. It's basically one class led by somebody, um, and basically both sides just share arguments. And I mean, both sides, honestly, it's happened before. We've done this before, but people have left these classes actually shaking hands, sharing conversation, not even political conversation, just conversation. This is a smart way. And if we can do this all across America, we can finally maybe end at least some more of the racial divide. I'm not saying we're going to end all the racial divide because we're definitely not going to do that. But I think there's definitely ways we can do it. Um, and I think this is one way to do it.
Also, our tolerance to people that commit these crimes should be more like Germany. If you saw someone waving a Nazi flag or an Adolf Hitler statue in front of the concentration camp, you would be outraged. We should stop investing in public funding of we should stop investing in public funding of Confederate deaths, and we should try to make sure the Confederate flag is not worn in a fashion that could offend someone, like on a school sports or something.
Well, I wait, hold on. I agree with you, but the fact of the matter is, we can't just take down all these Confederate statues. This is undoubtedly an issue in America, and I do agree that we should take them down in the eye of the public. But I think we can, fund we can fund community centers like Confederacy museums. We've done that for Civil War museums, and I think we can do it specifically for Confederacy museums, and I think that's what we should do. So,
I agree with you.
so I think, yeah, this is definitely also going to be an issue that we're going to have to tackle in the future. Uh, so now we can head on to our next question, our next uh, bullet point, and that is climate change. Climate change has been a significant talking point in our in our community, our mock election community. So the first question is, how has climate change affected you? And if you had to find a plan to benefit you, what would it be?
I live in Florida, so one of the things is Hurricane Irma. It, every time warming, the waters start warming, and those are perfect conditions for hurricanes. Violent hurricanes form and they cause a lot of damage. This outside my house, a tree collapsed, and there's a bunch of damage. And I literally just got a some local area has fumes leaking.
Yeah. Well, for me, I live in the Midwest. Climate change, all across the Rust Belt, we have those significant carbon emissions, and climate change has affected me because of the change it's making on this planet. Number one, and two, arguments that climate change is causing. So, for the last 11 years, 11 to 12, 11, 10 to 11 years, I have been studying meteorology, and something about meteorology. It's a very interesting topic. I encourage everybody to go and about meteorology because it's definitely something fun to understand. Is um, with the Earth is definitely heating up. That's undoubted, and the ocean levels are definitely rising. Well, how else are the ocean levels going to rise? Because people on the East Coast aren't just pouring water into the ocean uncontrollably. That's to say that is just incredibly. I don't even know, but um, you know, the polar ice caps and icebergs are melting around the globe, and that they aren't just melting. So nobody can make that argument that they're just melting for no reason. Um, because 20, 30 years ago, the polar ice caps weren't melting like at all, almost. Um, so, I mean, it's definitely something that we're going to have to look at. Climate change is real. We emit these carbon dioxide. There's a physical, these carbon emissions. There's a physical or chemical reaction with the ozone layer. The ozone layer burns. Like if you were to pour acid on a piece of plastic, it would burn right through it. That's what we're definitely seeing here. And when that happens, the ozone is the protective layer that protects us from sun rays. So what happens is the sun rays come down, and the perfect amount comes in to heat the earth so that we can survive. But the significant amount of them are bounced off the ozone and back towards the sun and back out in outer space. Um, and if we don't have an ozone, it basically makes that so all sun rays can come right through. Um, and um, with that being said, sun rays are just coming through. And if sun rays just come through, it literally makes this Earth an unlivable place. Like you can't live on this Earth if it doesn't have an ozone layer. Sure, we have an atmosphere, but most of the atmosphere is literally um, to protect us from stuff in outer space and also to control the magnetic fields in with Earth and other things in outer space. People will make the argument that you can look up and nothing looks different. Well, that's insane. That is insane. Um, if you look up, obviously you're not going to see a hole in the ozone or a hole in the sky or anything. So yes, climate change is real. It's a chemical reaction uh, between carbon emissions and the ozone, um, and the ozone layer is burning, and more uh, sun rays are coming in, and then what happens is the Earth is heating up by a half a degree every year. Um, and with that being said, it subsequently starts to melt the polar ice caps, and then once those melt in a significant manner, then the ocean levels start to rise. And that is the problem with climate change. Rising ocean levels are literally traced back to the sun and carbon emissions. So,
I believe in something called prevention and protection. We tried to prevent this by possibly sanctioning or tariffing oil companies and fracturing, fracking, and ExxonMobil in the 1980s, they did a study about they were knowing something was about to go wrong, methane and CO2 level effects on the climate. And the scientists warned them, saying it's definitely heating up the Earth. So what they just dismantled the team and they revised the entire study except it does nothing. And it took the government to intervene in the Clinton administration to finally find out climate field and to address it. Protection as well as to build seawalls, study proper systems, dams, systems would prevent water from obviously coming back, and we should try to build up cities, like adding layers of streets so you don't flood. Prevention, basically regulating the amount of CO2 or methane emitted, and constantly trying to invest in wind farms and solar panels and uh, uh, treating the companies that use these types of energy with a better respect. Companies that use solar panels or wind farms, they need to be allowed uh, like tax credits or tax cuts.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's also something that we could seriously use as well. So, without going on too far, we are going to move on to the next question here, and that is, if you create a large investment in clean energy, wouldn't it result in tax hikes? Why or why not?
Well, it possibly could. I mean, you can't just build stuff without paying for it. But this could be helpful. You could have people in West Virginia or in Kentucky. They have a lot of land. You could put them to work, put them into wind farms, and help them solar, help them with the wind farms. You should also start in the educational system. You should be beginning to fund a program basically help coal miners and people in the fossil fuel industry uh, transfer them from that in the industry, train them, and be able to get them to the alternative energy system.
I slightly disagree with you here. I mean, you said something about education. I'm not sure where that was. But I mean, well, I guess I don't disagree with you. But can you follow up on what you said about education? I mean,
We should be programs in states that help transfer people from the fossil fuel industry to the alternative energy industry. Need the energy for their families without a corrupt fossil fuel industry.
now I understand. I also do disagree with you. I disagree with you on the point that this would result in tax hikes. If you listen to my plan earlier on exit tax and tariffs on people leaving the country or companies leaving the country, we could make $89 million over a total of 10 years, and that is $17 million in in 1 year. We can use this $17 million, and this is truly estimated. I estimated this on my own before the debate. We could build over 50 wind farms in the Rust Belt off of this much money off of companies leaving this nation. 50 wind farms. This is enough wind farms to power almost 50 to 55 50 to 55 um 50 to 55 small and medium-sized cities across America. And I think that we're going to have to I think we're definitely going to have to use once again the money leave of the exit tax and tariffs leaving this nation. We do not have to tax the middle class to create things for the middle class. The wealthiest Americans obviously don't pay their taxes, and I mentioned earlier, you mentioned a corporate tax. If we incorporate that corporate tax with my exit tax and tariff plan, we could build clean energy sources all across America. This isn't about raising taxes, this is about being innovative. And I think if we are innovative, we can do this without it costing a penny. on the middle class.
I really like your plan because obviously people won't vote for someone who says, okay, there'll be a little bit taxes and they end up raising all the way. Your plan is absolutely amazing, and you should probably implement that. You obviously the Rust Belt states and the Gold Country states, they need to do it.
Yeah. Um, well, we're in agreement there now. So, um, moving on, is the EPA helpful, and would you continue funding to it, or increase or decrease funding to it? Why or why not?
I would increase funding. The Environmental Protection Agency stuff, and we should probably continue those regulations. Also, clean up our national parks and trying to limit the amount of methane. Is a little bit more contributing to climate change than CO2. We should start regulating that way more. So I believe an expansion of the environmental protection.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, the EPA, I would increase funding to it as well. Not only do they help us understand the issue of climate change and climate differences across the globe, but they also help us tackle it. I think we definitely have to start by staying true to the Paris Climate Accord, which President Trump so ignorantly pulled us out of. We need to understand that better. We need to follow that better. We need to have once again more regulation on on carbon emissions, and the EPA helps us do that. So I think we can definitely increase funding to them.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the next topic is education. Is Common Core helping American children? Why or why not?
Um, I don't believe in gigantic standardized tests. The education system in Finland, uh, that's probably the best you can get. They're the number one education source. They help create a safe environment for their children. They also create a modern environment that people think they can use. And the Common Core, like you said, uh, we could take we could take quizzes, and then maybe one gigantic test at the end of the year. That's mostly what we do. Um, so we could use that instead because children are absolutely pushed to the limit having a test every couple hours.
Yeah, I agree with you. Common Core is disastrous. I would take so many ways to repealing Common Core. Common Core has to go in American schools. You know, Common Core is basically saying, uh, let's put uh, let's put 2 plus 2 in front of 40 kindergartners, and all of them expecting to know how to do it just by saying 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's Common Core. Common Core is a bunch of elected officials sitting in a room determining what we learn in school, what the next generation learns in school, and none of them have taught a day in their lives. It's outrageous. We have to repeal Common Core because this is not the way to go about education. You know, they've created so many new things, new English, new math, and it is all pointless. It takes us completely away from the modern day corporations and modern day small businesses. It takes us away from modern day adult living, period. And you know, if we continue it, we we can't phase it out. We can't phase it out. Most people start a new math halfway through their education, which does not work. They're not going to understand it. Therefore, you're left in your adult life thinking, do I do it this way? Do I do it this way? You're explained and doing it this way by your parents and by your bosses, and then you're explained doing it this way by your teacher and your school and in school. So I think Common Core has to go. Is there something a way to substitute for Common Core? Yes, there is. State level education. The state looks at test scores and says, "Hey, this person can be in this class. This person can be in this class." We need ranked classes, believe it or not. Um, which starts with making bigger, elementary schools and bigger middle schools, put and you start to get ranked classes in high school and in middle school too, where one person is in pre-algebra, the other person is in algebra, the other person is geometry, and the person in geometry obviously understands it more. That's not putting 40 students in one classroom and trying to teach them geometry and expecting them all to understand it. We need ranked classes K through 12, meaning One classroom is for people who have test scores from here to here, and that teacher can specifically help them. The next classroom is for people who have test scores from here to here, and that teacher can specifically help them. And then obviously the highest test scores go in this class, and they can work on what the teacher wants, or even what they're going to start learning next year, introducing them to what they're going to learn the year after that. And obviously, if we can't do that for one grade, because then it would throw them off as they go into the next grade. So we need to do this K through 12 ranked classes. And I think that would definitely be a good substitute for Common Core.
Um, Going back to Finland, they have an education system based off of the taxpayer taxes, which is how the government works. We should invest more in that instead of 2 plus 2 divided by 40 times 67. We should, because that's not going to help you pay your school might, but it's not as effective as telling you these are the different types of taxes, this is what you mean, how you pay them.
Yeah, and this in Sweden, their education system focuses on collaboration with other students and with the modern world in Sweden, rather than working with working with just the work that are in the standards. And also, obviously, that plays along with homework is non-existent there. Obviously, they have tests, but not as frequent as we do here in America. Modern day education, you look at a car, how much a car has changed from 1940 to 2017, how much a house has changed from 1940 to 2017, how much uh a cell phone has changed from 1940 to 2017. And then you look at a school classroom, get this, from 1940 to 2017, literally nothing has changed. And that is terrifying.
Um, uh, these people who create this system know nothing about children. They create these unexpectedly high standards for these people, have nothing to do with how they will be in real life. These people come out of high school, they go to college, and they end college, yes, with a degree, but they also end with debt, and this could take them many, many, many years to pay this off. And it's basically our current education system doesn't teach them about life, which is what they're supposed to do. And with the homework, it basically children are overloaded. Teachers and the majority of learning in some schools is just basically this is what you do for homework. It's basically everything centered around homework. We should be taking more quizzes instead of homework. You're making children insanely frustrated and angry at their own house, which is ridiculous.
I agree. Next question is, are teachers underpaid? And if so, would you fix that, and how?
Um, they're underpaid. I remember I used to live in Oregon before this, and they had the teachers were absolutely angry they weren't being paid as much. These people work with our children; they should be paid more because if you were working just a little bit more than a minimum wage job, and you could take care of a child that wants to kill you every day, you don't want to do that properly. You want to get out as soon as you can. You want these teachers to be able to work with students, and to do that, you should always hire their wages and for school too, a little bit higher than minimum wage is not effective. These teachers don't care about these children; they'll just care about the paycheck.
I agree with you. I think that teachers are underpaid. Every day they go into classrooms and they literally teach the next generation of students how they're going to succeed and lead America forward. And they are paid only even less than sometimes a person who works at Walmart. So basically, we're saying you, you person right there, who is teaching the next generation of this nation, the future of this nation, and the well-being of the future of this nation, is going to get paid less than a Walmart worker. That is ridiculous to me.
Yeah, it is to me as well. Someone who teach, you said, someone who teaches next generation of Americans. You said they're paid less than someone in Walmart. actually getting paid more. They teach these children, they work with them. Points, okay, there's aisle 13, you go down there. Haha, I get paid more than you.
I agree. Um, uh, yeah, and I mean, that's about all we can say. Teachers are underpaid, and we do have to fix that by introducing, obviously, legislation that increases teachers' pay, even if we have to literally instate a minimum wage for teachers, which we usually don't instate minimum wage for union jobs, but for teachers, it looks like increasingly more likely like it's going to be needed. Like we need minimum wage for teachers. Screw the contracts. The contracts are one thing for a total of, you could get paid, you know, $16 an hour for 7 hours for a total of 8 years off contracts, and that's unchangeable. With minimum wage, you can change that. It can be varied by who you elect, and I feel like that might actually be needed to some extent if we cannot fix this inequality problem.
Yeah, completely agree with you.
Okay, moving on to a very hot issue all around, not only in our community on Google Plus, but also in America itself. ISIS in North Korea. The first question is ISIS is on the verge of defeat. How do we accelerate thus defeat?
Um, we should be leading an entire national coalition. We only have like a few nations in Iraq and maybe a few like absolutely crazy people trying to fight themselves. Um, these we should be this be international because if these people could very well kill your own citizens, you should be trying to make sure they can't do that again. You should be they're already near defeat. If all the nations work together, we could defeat this much quicker. Not just the NATO countries and countries like Russia and the U.S. They're fighting over nothing. Their main goal is to defeat ISIS, but they're just fighting each other's planes and they fight each other when they should be looking at their enemies.
I totally agree with you. And I think um, I'm actually opposed to putting U.S. troops on the ground. But if I think we pump you know, almost the entire US manufacturing line into Israel, into Saudi Arabia for the reason of, defeating ISIS, and then have them have a massive offensive against ISIS. We can actually, and that includes Turkey too, we can actually push back ISIS really fast if you think about it. So I don't think we should have too many troops on the ground. Maybe some troops are needed. Realistically, we will need some troops, but um, the amounts that Trump is proposing putting in Afghanistan or is putting in Afghanistan, I do not think we need. So I think we should definitely support our allies as much as possible to accelerate defeat of ISIS. And with that, an argument can be made that they're not going to do anything. ISIS, or they're not going to do anything against ISIS. You see that an argument would be made that they haven't done anything already. And with that, all I have to say is, you know, uh, Saudi Arabia and Israel haven't went in a major offensive with with um, with ISIS in years. Therefore, we don't know how it would work out. It could go good, it could go bad. We don't know how it would work out, and unless we try this, we don't know how to work out. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Okay, the next theme actually is on leadership in or actually it's on North Korea still. Sorry. North Korea is a very dangerous threat to America. Explain your diplomatic plan and your military plan.
Um, I think we don't know about sanctions on their economy because their people are getting oppressed. They won't just fight for North Korea if they not know the U.S. is trying to kill them in a famine. We should put an oil sanction though, and we should try to make our best bet to help China stop full. Because if they don't have any oil, they can't run their military machine, and this will actually get them to do something. We should be on the table, and we should be thinking.
I agree. My diplomatic plan would be the same diplomatic plan as Bill Clinton had in his presidency. He was on a knife's edge from having the largest diplomatic relations with North Korea since before the Korean War, way before the Korean War actually. And I think that's definitely something that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to look at his plan and see how we can fix it to modern day North Korea and to Kim Jong Un himself. My military plan would be support nuking North Korea. I wouldn't support dropping a nuclear bomb in North Korea because that affects our allies in China and Japan and in South Korea. And so that would be dangerous to drop a nuclear bomb on China or on North Korea. Don't drop a nuclear weapon on China. Um, um, we should, however, if worse comes to worse, we bring in our Navy and our Air Force and we bomb uh, the launch sites of these nuclear weapons. And we also make sure that we bomb the places where scientists are trying to figure out where where these where how to build these nuclear warheads and put them on these missiles. Next, if North Korea were to invade South Korea, I don't support invading them back. I support keeping it at the demilitarized zone. So building just a massive defensive on the demilitarized zone. Um, so I don't support regime change. I just support North Korea finally getting the hint that we're not going to sit here and watch you advance a weapon that you are literally threatening us with. Like that's like saying that's like saying a gun owner is going to hold a gun to somebody and and we're just going to let them say I'm going to shoot you while they're holding a gun at you. Like that it's just ridiculous. And I think that's no place more evident than North Korea.
Yeah, completely agree with you. It is absolutely amazing. It's not an offensive war, so it doesn't look like we're trying to invade them. It's a defensive war. We're trying to protect South Korea because whenever we go into a defensive war, for some reason we always stick to an offensive war, like in Iraq, and suddenly we have an entire regime collapse. We don't need that in North Korea because this time North Korea has nukes. They're within striking range of Guam. If these were to fall into yet another wrong hands after they them, how bad would we look if Washington? How bad would we look if Seattle got bombed?
Yeah, these are all good issues that we're going to have to work out, and it's going to take legislative process. It's going to take executive process, but I definitely think that we can do it. Um, the next point is leadership in America. This will be our last tonight. What makes you a better choice? Here's where it's going to kind of get kind of messy. Sorry, I just had to add these questions in. What makes you a better choice for leadership than your opponent?
Um, we're very, very, very similar. So, is that too much? Um, I think we could evenly work together. It's just, hmm. I live in Florida, so I see climate change like to a front hand. I the water coming in. I see the algae growing unexpectedly. I see heat blasts in the middle of winter. And I see advanced hurricanes. Yep.
And like you said, with the climate change, I see obviously firsthand. I am. People don't m- use Illinois as a rust belt because I think as a state in the Rust Belt, but I think Rust Belt has become more of a political meaning than its actual meaning. I do consider Illinois in the Rust Belt. Um, just because it's a solid Democratic state doesn't mean that it's not in the Rust Belt. I think it is in the Rust Belt. So I say that I live in the heart of the Rust Belt, and I live in a city that went through literal financial ruins. Um, and it wasn't just on a local basis. It was on from family to family was going through financial ruins. There was a mass exodus. The population totally disintegrated, and that has affected me. That we lost money, or businesses started leaving. There were no jobs left, and that obviously affected my family significantly. Next, I live, like you said, hurricanes. I live essentially in Tornado Alley, where we get a lot of tornadoes per year. Is the fourth most tornado tornado producing state in the nation. We get, like, on average 92 tornadoes per year, and if I think Florida is actually ahead of us, mainly because of the hurricane situation down there. I mean, tornadoes always come with hurricanes, but we have 92 tornadoes on average per year. So I understand not only economic ruins, family to family and locally, but I understand also the events of natural disasters and etc. So I mean, I think not only that, but I understand when you live in a rural area and you literally get urbanized. You know, when you and that if that's evident probably for you too in a state like Florida, but you know, my city, Galesburg, Illinois, is literally swelling in population right now because of the amount of people that are moving from Chicago. So not only have we basically been a rural city, but in the last, like 7 election cycles, we have become from solid Republican to solid Democrat county because of the amount of urbanization that has been going on. So I understand, you know, it's kind of a change. It's a change that's good for me since I'm a Democrat, but it's not a change that's good for everybody. Some people don't like urbanization. Some people don't like living in urban areas, and I understand that. So not only do I understand urbanization, but I understand living in the heart of the Rust Belt and facing financial ruins, and I understand um, climate change and natural disasters.
Um, about the population density thing, down here in Florida, we surpassed New York only a couple months ago. And our area, if I were standing here 20 years ago, I would be in the middle of a swamp. Right now, I'm standing in a house. Um, and last year, uh, our county was horrible at regulating schools, and what our school got out of control. We at our school, whenever we had a fire drill, 2,000 students rushing out through one gate. Is that acceptable? No, because people being trampled.
I agree, and like I said you probably feel that in a state like Florida too. So yeah. The next question here is: can you work on a bipartisan agenda better than your opponent? If so, how?
Um, I don't know your stance on the minimum wage, but I think $15 that would be absolutely amazing. It's just a little bit too high. The no Republican, if we suddenly lose in a massive upset and Republicans get control of the Senate, um, then that a $15 minimum wage has no chance of passing. A $12 minimum wage, though, it's higher. It's not the highest. It's higher, and it's more leaning towards a living wage, and it can gain Republican support, and you can allow states to hire it from there.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And also, I think that I have a lot of bipartisan, experience because, like I said, my family is split between Democrat and Republican. My mom's mom and my mom's stepdad are both Republican, and their entire families are Republican. So we're split right there, Democrat and Republican. We have political conversations all the time, and I am usually able to understand them if they can explain it to me, and I can usually explain my placement to them and they can understand it. So I think that also plays into bipartisan politics.
Um, yeah, you're right. Down here in Florida, we are the most hotly contested swing state in the entire country. 50% Democrat, 50% Republican. Uh, if you're right here, you will see a lot of like Bernie Sanders 2020 signs. You go just 13 miles down the street, you will see signs. You need to be able to work together with those people. Our goal is if you win a state, but you only win the large cities, and that gets you to say everything else is red.
Yeah, I agree. The next question is bipartisan politics important to you?
Um, yes, it is because the Democrats and the Republicans need to work together, like as we saw in Australia, and universal background check. Conservatives, liberals, they work together. In Canada, the conservatives together on healthcare. We need to do that to get the Republicans to agree with us because the more we pass our own agenda, we isolate ourselves, we push ourselves farther left, they're right.
Yeah, I agree. I think in a two-party America, if if we are going to do anything about if we are going to get anything done, we have to have bipartisan politics. There's no doubt about it. Bipartisan politics, or non-bipartisan politics, which is going on in the Senate and House of Representatives and the White House right now, we obviously see nothing is getting done. In fact, to point that out, actually winning are winning in the polls for the U.S. Senate. And if you want to point out bipartisan politics, Donald Trump's approval rating right now is at 38.2, according to 538, and a 55.9% disapproval. What that means is that the Senate, the Donald Trump's ability to get anything done is based on the Senate. And if the Senate is not doing anything, Donald Trump is probably naturally going to have a lower approval rating. If the Senate was if the Senate was, I mean, and even, sometimes I think to myself, I mean, heck, why is John McCain not a Democrat? I mean, he's voted so much with the Democrats in Congress lately. It's it's amazing. But yeah, I think people like John McCain are working bipartisan politics. I think people like most of the Democrats, even like Kamala Harris or Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders especially can work with bipartisan politics because he's an independent. But like Kamala Harris or my senator Dick Durbin, or I think they all work good with bipartisan politics. Even Elizabeth Warren works good with bipartisan politics, and I think we need to take those and we need to enhance it. And take John McCain's idea of bipartisan politics and enhance it because they've all worked very well with bipartisan politics.
Yeah. Um, with John McCain, you're right. He's worked so good. He's won re-election so many times. He's absolutely loved. Unless he like dies or something, a Democrat's most likely going to have to work for her entire life to beat John McCain. John McCain, he's been known to work with people. He was loved. I think if he didn't run a partisan campaign, Obama could have possibly won 48 states. But partisan politics works so much. He was able to take like 30 or 32 states.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better actually. Um, well, if that's all you have to say, that is that all you have to say about that?
Yeah.
Well, that was the last question for this first Democratic debate. So I'd like to thank everybody for watching. A lot of people wanted a town hall. I'm sorry that you didn't get a town hall. I'll post a post on the community where you can ask questions, and me and Oran can both answer those questions in the comments. So if that's a good idea for you.
Yeah, good idea for me. I'd be willing to doing it.
Okay, so if you have a town hall question, just look for my post, and you can ask those questions there and we'll answer them. So thank you everybody for watching this first Democratic debate. I'll post a poll later on to see who won the debate. I hate to, you know, it's a clean election. I mean, I hate to not make it a clean election, but
Yeah.
anyway, so thank you everybody for watching, and see you later.